When someone repeatedly uses words that strip away your worth, you have to understand that you're not just dealing with a moment of bad communication. You're not dealing with someone who simply doesn't know how to express themselves. You're dealing with someone who is intentionally or unconsciously eroding the foundation of your self-respect. And once that erosion begins, it doesn't stop on its own. It accelerates, it compounds, because disrespect never shrinks, it always grows. The human mind is wired in such a way that words carry enormous weight, far more than we sometimes want to admit. We like to believe that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But that's not true. Bones can heal. Words, when planted over time, become belief systems. They shape how you see yourself, how you walk into a room, how much space you allow yourself to take up in the world. When the person closest to you, the one you've trusted with your heart, repeatedly uses words to belittle you, those words sink deeper than any casual insult from a stranger ever could. Because you don't just hear them, you start to believe them. Now, let's be clear. Every relationship will have arguments. That's natural. Disagreements will lead to sharp tones, sometimes even careless words. That's part of being human. But there's a difference between occasional conflict and a pattern of degradation. A difference between someone saying something they regret and someone using language as a weapon. And that's what we're talking about here when he crosses the line from argument into humiliation, from expressing frustration into systematically cutting you down. That's not conflict, that's character. That's someone showing you how they truly view you. Think about the words he uses. Does he call you stupid, crazy, too much? Does he dismiss your feelings as dramatic or overreacting? Does he mock you in front of others, make jokes at your expense, and then tell you you're too sensitive when you point it out? Those are not innocent slips. Those are clues. Every one of those words carries an agenda to make you question yourself. Because the moment you doubt yourself, the easier you are to control. And here's the psychological depth of it. When you start internalizing those words, you don't just lose confidence. You lose clarity. You begin to ask yourself questions like, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I am the problem. That's the subtle poison of verbal degradation. It makes you rewrite reality in his favor. It doesn't just silence your voice in the relationship, it silences your voice in your own head. But respect, in its truest form, is non-negotiable. You cannot barter with it. You cannot compromise on it. Without respect, love is just theater. It's a performance. It might look like a relationship from the outside. There may be dinners, vacations, even anniversaries. But at its core, it's not love. It's domination. Because love can survive disagreement. It can survive distance. It can survive flaws and imperfections. But it cannot survive contempt. Once contempt enters the equation, the relationship becomes a battlefield where only one person is allowed to win and the other is expected to shrink. The danger is that disrespect rarely shows up loudly in the beginning. It creeps in quietly. At first, it might look like teasing. Then it becomes sarcasm, then criticism, then open insults. By the time you realize how much it's grown, you've already adjusted yourself to it. You've already lowered your standards, telling yourself, this is just how he talks. He doesn't really mean it. But the truth is, words repeated over time reveal belief systems. If someone consistently talks down to you, they're not just describing you. They're describing how little they value you. And here's the thing, you don't owe anyone endless patience at the cost of your dignity. You don't have to stick around to prove that you can handle it. You don't have to wait for him to change. Because every day you stay, you're teaching yourself to normalize mistreatment. You're teaching yourself to accept less than you deserve. And if there's one lesson life will keep teaching until you learn it, it's this: The longer you tolerate disrespect, the harder it becomes to reclaim your self-respect. Now, let's take a step back and ask, why do people stay even after the words have become knives? The answer is layered. Some stay because of hope. They think, he'll change. He didn't mean it. He was just stressed. Others stay because of fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of confirming the lies he's been feeding them. That they're not good enough, that no one else will want them. And some stay because of conditioning. They've heard these words so often, they've begun to mistake them for truth. But here's what I want you to hear. Someone who truly loves you will never make you doubt your worth. They might challenge you, they might disagree with you, but they will never belittle you. Real love does not require you to shrink. It does not require you to accept humiliation as just part of the package. Real love enlarges you. It strengthens you. It makes you more of who you are, not less. So, when his words begin to strip away your worth, you have a decision to make, and I know that decision isn't easy. Walking away never is. It requires courage. It requires breaking through fear, through conditioning, through hope that maybe tomorrow will be different. But I promise you this, every step you take away from disrespect is a step back toward yourself, toward your clarity, your strength, your dignity. At the end of the day, here's the truth you need to hold on to. If his words make you smaller, if his voice becomes the reason you doubt your own, if his language consistently undermines who you are, then it's not love, it's control. And you were not created to live under control. You were created to live in freedom, in respect, in the kind of love that builds you, not breaks you. So don't wait for the insults to become unbearable. Don't wait for the day when you no longer recognize yourself. The moment you realize that his words are designed to strip you of your worth, that's the moment you already have your answer. Leave. Because your dignity is the one thing you should never negotiate. And if you remember nothing else from this, remember this: a man who truly values you will speak life into you, not drain it out of you. When a man tells you that no one else will want you, that you can't survive without him, or that he's the best you'll ever get, he is not speaking from love. He is speaking from control. These are not words of affection, they are words of entrapment. They are designed to weaken you, to cut off your sense of possibility, and to keep you tethered to him through fear rather than choice. And here's the truth you need to hold on to. When love turns into a prison, it ceases to be love. It becomes manipulation. There's a psychology behind these kinds of statements. They're meant to condition your thinking, to rewrite your perception of reality. Imagine someone repeating the same line to you over and over again. You're nothing without me. No one else could love you like I do. Even if you reject it at first, the repetition starts to sink in. This is how psychological conditioning works. What begins as a blatant lie eventually begins to sound plausible, and then, dangerously, it begins to feel true. That's when the trap is set. Because once you start believing those lies, you stop imagining a life outside of him. You stop seeing your own strength, your own worth, your own capacity to thrive. This is what makes these words so dangerous. They don't just attack your emotions, they attack your future. They paint a picture where every road without him leads to failure, loneliness, or despair. And if you accept that picture, you will stay, not because of love, but because of fear. And fear is the most effective leash in the world. It doesn't require chains. It doesn't require physical force. It just requires you to believe that you're incapable of walking away. But here's where I need you to lean in and really hear this. Dependence is the illusion. You are not dependent on him. You've been conditioned to think you are. There's a massive difference. Dependency says, I literally cannot survive without this person. Conditioning says, I've been told I can't survive, so I've stopped trying to imagine otherwise, And the cruel trick of manipulation is that it convinces you that your limitations are permanent when they are not. Every time he tells you that you'll never find better, what he's really saying is, I'm terrified you'll realize you can, because deep down, he knows that if you ever remembered your value, if you ever remembered your capacity to build, to love, to thrive, you would no longer need him. And without your dependence, he loses his power. These statements are not confidence, they are insecurity in disguise. A secure man doesn't need to remind you of your limits. He doesn't need to cage you with words. A secure man gives you freedom because he knows your choice to stay is real. Now, let's be honest. Leaving after hearing these kinds of statements is not easy because manipulation is sticky. It burrows into your self-image. And by the time you're questioning it, you're already carrying the weight of his voice in your head. Maybe you've started to think, what if he's right? What if I really can't do better? That's the genius of manipulation. It convinces you to participate in your own captivity. But here's what I'll tell you. The fact that you're even asking those questions is proof that you're already stronger than he wants you to believe. The very act of doubting his narrative is the first crack in the wall he's built around you. And once there's a crack, light can get in. The deeper problem is this: the longer you stay, the more believable the lies become. Not because they're true, but because repetition is powerful. That's why cult leaders repeat mantras, why advertisers repeat slogans, why manipulators repeat threats. Human beings are wired to absorb what we hear often. And if the loudest voice in your life is telling you that you'll fail without him, eventually you'll stop questioning it. That's why the decision to leave has to happen before the lies solidify into identity. Let me be blunt. A man who truly values you will never make his love conditional on your dependence. He will never say, without me, you're nothing. Because real love does the opposite. It points out your strength, your beauty, your capability. It makes you see more in yourself, not less. Real love doesn't chain you. It frees you. It makes you more of who you are, not a shadow of what you could be. So when a man tells you that you can't survive without him, you must translate that in your head to its true meaning. I need you to believe this, or I lose control over you. Or I'll tell you what's worse than staying in a relationship where you're being told you're nothing without him. Waking up 10 years later and realizing you believed it. Realizing you gave away years of your life to someone who clipped your wings and called it love. You don't have time to waste proving someone wrong who never saw your worth to begin with. The harsh reality is this: the longer you stay, the more you start living out his prediction. If you allow yourself to believe that you can't survive without him, you'll stop building the skills, the independence, the self-trust that prove otherwise. That's why the exit has to be immediate, not because you're weak, but because you're